Hello, everybody. Ryukyu got a lot stronger after Attack on Titan, and she got better in a really sneaky way. And the way she got better is that they finally printed some more blank cards. Now, normally a blank card would suck. It's a card like this that literally has no effect text on it. But it's really good in Ryukyu because she says whenever you play a card, if it has no abilities, you draw a card and then you can add a card from your hand to your momentum. So anything that's blank secretly has that text on it, and that text is extremely strong. Anytime you play a blank card, just getting that card draw and momentum is really, really good. The other way she got better is this asset called vertical maneuvering equipment. This is probably among the top assets ever made in terms of the current standard format, at least. Spend momentum, an attack gets +3 or -3 speed, then you can change its zone. So you get to be Mirio on offense, and you get to be Walkling plus -3 speed on defense, and the only cost is momentum. So because we're generating so much momentum with our blank cards, this is almost always live, and we basically get to change the zone on everything and make it -3 speed, which is very, very strong. The other enhance is just for +2 damage, which can matter, but we normally don't have a damage problem because Ryukyu on her face says discard momentum for +4 damage to an attack with no abilities. So we can use that on the vast majority of our stuff. So that's the concept. And the two new foundation blank cards are Trust and Armin, which is amazing because it's a 0 diff. And then we also have That Day, which is another mid block. Being a mid block doesn't matter because we'll just change the zone with vertical maneuvering equipment, and it's a pretty good block mod of 2 mid. Now, I found that the best way to take advantage of these blank cards is not only offensively, where you'll play them and build out and keep drawing cards, but also defensively. And Life actually has a really nice defensive plan with your foundations with the combination of Incredible Display. This card says when you play, after you block with a foundation, you add it to your hand. So the combo here is you actually hold on to one of your blank foundations, and you have a bunch of incredible displays out. They're full blocks because of your vertical maneuvering equipment, and it's -3 speed, so you can actually block. Then you block with your foundation, draw a card, put it into momentum, respond incredible display, pick it back up, and now you can block again with vertical maneuvering equipment because you just got a momentum for playing it as a block. So you can pretty much consecutively infinitely block with a blank foundation in hand, one momentum, and vertical maneuvering equipment, which is really, really cool. So that's why we're running 4 Incredible Display, and we're actually trying to not play all of the blank foundations we draw, but all of them except for one, and it doesn't matter which blank one we draw because we're going to have the vertical maneuvering equipment to change the zone and minus the speed. One thing I did want to say real quick is that I am running 4 vertical maneuvering equipment, and I do think it is worth it because you do want to find this as quickly as possible and as often as possible. Having multiples of this actually is good because sometimes you might want to give something -6 speed, and sometimes you might want to have an extra in case Vast Hybrid Chimera Kraken commits one of them. So having that redundancy there is very good. Now I want to talk a little bit about the offensive plan, which I won't spend too much time on because it is just standard Ryukyu, but with the addition of one card, Titanic Leap. Now, Life has some other blank 5 diffs that have good block mods because there are 1 high or 1 low blocks, but we don't actually need that because we have vertical maneuvering equipment, and the important number on this card is the forecheck. Now, I'm a big believer that the check values on your cards matter a lot. The 4 here just makes our attack quality really high because now we are running all these attacks that have good check values in addition to just being blank. So I prefer this over the 5 diff attacks that are blank, but their stats aren't very good and they check a 3. And I will be honest, I am not often playing this as an attack. Oftentimes it's just there just in case. It's kind of like a foundation that you can't actually play as a foundation. You just kind of hold it in your hand, and if you only drew it as your only attack, it's fine. And if you check it, it's also totally fine. So the only time I didn't like this in my hand is when on turn 1 I really wanted to build out, and I had a bunch of these, which honestly isn't the biggest deal in this deck, especially if you're going second, because you can play that blank foundation, shove it into your momentum, as long as your character is not committed. The thing that's interesting about this list that I think differs from other Rikyus as well is only running one Dragon Impact. I do think you have to run one at least, but I'm not running two, three, or four. And the reason why is our suit of 3 diffs foundations, which I'll get to in a moment. But the other reason is we can actually fetch it with Urameshi Perseverance. So as long as we play the game for a few turns, we're probably going to find this in our discard, or we're going to put it in our momentum, which is actually the safer play, because then it can't be targeted for discard hate. So we play our blank thing, we put it in our momentum, then later on we pay the cost, which happens first, form, remove, discard of momentum, then add it directly to our hand. So I think this form to add a card from our discard pile to our hand is very, very strong in this particular character, because that lets us find the Dragon Impact, even if we don't draw into it at the right time. Anyway, now on to the 3 diffs. I do think that life has a lot of really crazy 3 diffs right now, and I do think that you're missing out if you're playing life and not playing these 3 diffs. And so for that reason, I didn't want to play too many 2 checks, because on your turn 1, you really don't want to be committing Ryukyu. That is a huge, a thing to be a committed character. So we're definitely not a character that wants to be committed. And so even if we're going second, we don't want to be checking our 2 ever. And so that's why we're only running 1 2 check, because we just don't want to be committing our character, and of course we want to be passing our foundation checks. What we get in exchange for playing these 3 difficulty foundations is a lot of draw power. So we play 1 Researching the Answer, which just makes us a 7-hander. Our deck is kind of built around a lot of singletons, so this is usually live. We have Uplifting Bond, which is just insane. After you play an attack, gain a health. If it deals damage, it doesn't count towards progressive difficulty this turn. I'm only running 1 because we have a lot of other 3 diffs that we want to run too, but I think this card is crazy. Just giving something the Midst of Despair text on it and gaining a health every turn is really, really strong. And I think it's fine to have 1 of it, because you only really want to be playing this response once on a per attack. And so you basically are telling your opponent you have to block this first move, and then you maybe use vertical maneuvering equipment a bunch of times to make it really high speed and make your opponent not really want to block it, but they kind of have to if they want it to count towards progressive that turn. A Son's Love is another really crazy 3-diff. On life, you just first form, commit, draw a card. What I love about the first form here, and why it edges out other cards that are similar that say commit to draw a card, is it is a form, so you don't actually have to commit to playing an attack to draw a card, which I think is just a tier up above draw power that you have to play an attack for at enhanced speed. The other thing about this card is sometimes you get to draw 2 because your opponent really wants a momentum, and then you're just like an 8-hander, which is crazy. So yeah, very good card here. Pump Up is just a nice 1-of to have. I'm actually a little lower on this card than other people are, I feel, because but it's still like a very, very good card. And what makes it good in this deck is the fact that we have a bunch of blank foundations that just kind of sit on a stage being blank. And so we might as well flip them for some advantage. Yeah, it's an incredibly good card. There are so many good 3-diffs in life. It's really tempting to just play another copy of Blood Evaluation, for example. But yeah, 1 of Pump Up is fine, especially since we are a Researching the Answer combo deck. I did bring Researching the Answer down to a 1-of just because I don't like seeing 2 of them in my hand. And I will be honest, this foundation list is very jam-packed. It's hard to make room here. Anyway, Blood Evaluation is insane in Ryukyu, just being able to draw a card by readying it, by discarding momentum. This card alone basically lets us always be taking that momentum and always be readying. This is essentially, in this character, it's 3 foundations over a turn cycle and +2 to your hand size over a turn cycle. So Blood Evaluation is actually insane in Ryukyu. The problem is, Honestly, there's no problem. The problem is I wish I could run more of this card, but I do want to make room for our other 3 diffs. Next, a gift returned works so well with a number 10 Pro Hero because this does check a 6. Now, we're only running 2 because, we're not always going to have this card in our discard, but when we do have it in our discard, this just feels so good to just fetch our 1 high block that also draws us a card and gives us some momentum. That strength I'm only running a 2 of. I think I could easily see this as a 3 of or a 4 of, but I'm only running it as a 2 of because just our foundation list is so packed. And although we don't normally care about block zones, our block zones are a little suspect if we don't find the vertical maneuvering equipment. So it is nice to kind of not run 4 of a 3 mid block. 4 check, but this is an insanely good card. Probably even better now than it was last format because you can cancel blitz abilities, blank a attack that your opponent plays that has a really impactful blitz. Now, it also has the Ryukyu form, which is just insane with Dragon Impact or Dragon Strike, just being able to repeatedly play those cards. Now, yeah, I probably should just play more in the sideboard or something. A very, very good card. Just hard to find room. 1 Lost in Thought. Now, my thought process here, I pretty much don't like this card normally. When I played Life Overhaul, I was not playing Lost in Thought. And the reason is that you do go negative in resources. You remove this foundation and then you add a foundation from your hand back to your stage. So you're normally, when you're playing this card, going -1 on resources. Now, that matters a lot for a deck that's just trying to be really greedy, but in this deck, I think it works well because we're not actually going negative when we lift a blank foundation, like our number 10 Pro Hero, and then block with it. So we're actually not going down in card advantage, which I personally find pretty important. And the other thing that this is doing is it's letting us snipe a foundation, which we already do very well with Dragon Strike, but it's just nice to have another card that can, on a foundation, remove a threatening foundation piece that the opponent has. Next, we play 4 New Training Method. I think this card is nuts, especially in this character. To find our blank foundations, we can always respond, commit, flip this to pick it up when we check it, which is very good. Steadfast Resolve is very important for just being a destruction outlet, destroying our blank foundations to get them into the discard so we can draw them after our cycle again. It's also at response speed, which matters a lot, and just the best foundation destruction outlet on life, probably. Infinite Potential is a nice cheeky one, which goes really well with number 10 Pro Hero. Also is another name for our researching the answers, so we're only running 1 of it, but it's a nice thing to have just in case we don't want a vertical maneuvering equipment or if we don't have it out. 1 Genkai's Training. Now, really the only reason this is in here is the discard 1 momentum to ready it, which is already on Blood Evaluation, but a 1 diff that does this is very good. So kind of like a 1 diff Blood Evaluation that isn't drawing us cards. The other thing this is doing is, even though we are running a lot of Attack and Titan cards, which obviously only have 1 symbol, we are running enough cards that are from older sets that still have 3 symbols that this Enhanced Commit plus, or make your block mod +0 still matters. And interestingly, if we need to bring in Evade and Copy from the sideboard, we do share 2 symbols with Evade and Copy. And Evade and Copy and Genkai's Training is one of my favorite combos of just, oh yeah, we're going to set your printed speed to printed, and we're blocking with a 0 mid. I think that is a very strong interaction there. 1 number 7 Pro Hero, because this card is great. Dragon Power as a 1 of. I'm kind of lower on Dragon Power than maybe I should be, but the reason this is a 1 of is because we're getting our speed from vertical maneuvering equipment already, so I just didn't feel the need to run 4 of this Dragon Power, especially since it's not a defensive foundation, and it's also only working on your blank cards, so it actually does not work on the Dragon Impact, importantly, which does come up sometimes, so... but it is just like a 1 diff that gives everything 1 speed. I could easily see if you move away from the research and the answer combo, definitely a nice 4 of. The other thing I was trying to cut is mid blocks, so that was another reason. Ninja Chain of the Big 3, just another name and another destruction outlet. High value target, another name, also protects your other foundations from being destroyed, which I do think is very relevant in this format right now with all the new ways to selectively destroy foundations. So I think this is the stocks on high value target are going up in general. One syndicate target, just as a name, one keeping area safe, just as a name, and that wraps it up for the deck. Now, in the main board, we do struggle against a very popular deck type, which is Titan Tax. We have a lot of ways to prevent string decks from stringing out. We have vertical maneuvering equipment to just kind of chain block an incredible display, to just say no to your string decks. But some decks are not playing a bunch of attacks, they're playing one big attack. And that's where Battle for the Future comes in. We slide this in against those Smiling Titans and stuff. It's just response, discard 2 momentum. After your rival plays an attack, discard it from the card pool. I think this is really good into those Titan decks because they're going to commit 2 or 3 foundations to play their 8 diff move, and then we're just going to respond, discard it from the card pool before it gets the blitz off. And 2 momentum is a very fake cost in Ryukyu because we probably have 2 momentum just from building on our first turn if we're going second. So yeah, this is a very nice card to have in the side. 3 Dragon Impact in the side. Now the reason is if you're in a slower matchup, the Deadlock Enhance does come up a lot, and against a character that actually wants to be readied on defense. So I'm trying to think of what is good right now that actually cares about this, but basically just being able to commit the rival character. I mean, Elder Toguro, Irwin probably also doesn't want to be committed. There are some characters that, being able to commit them just kind of kills them. So 3 Dragon Impact in the side I think makes a lot of sense. 1 Masho Concealment in the side for those decks running high impact foundations. And 3 Evading Copy because Evading Copy is nuts right now against especially those. This is another card for those decks that are playing tower attacks. In terms of this deck's competitiveness, I was pleasantly surprised in my early testing. Admittedly, I haven't had the chance to bring this to an event yet, but I do think this has the potential to maybe get there. I think it has some really good matchups into. I wouldn't say it's a good matchup into Mikasa. I would say it's an acceptable matchup into Mikasa because we can reliably kind of block them out sometimes enough with our 28 health to live and hit them back for their life total. So I would say we are acceptable into Mikasa. And we're pretty good into most string decks, I feel. And we're just like a solid character. I think a lot of mid-rangey decks kind of will struggle into Ryukyu, and the reason why is vertical maneuvering equipment is just so strong at shutting down like your overhauls, your I haven't tested against Reiner, but maybe Reiner. I'm not sure, but a lot of those mid-rangey decks I feel are gonna hit this vertical maneuvering equipment wall and not be able to punch through it, and then your offense is really strong as well. Anyway, I've rambled on for long enough, so that's the deck. Oh yeah, I was gonna bring this up in the intro. The other reason that you might want to run this deck is the fact that we're running Uplifting Bond, which is totally optional, and that's the only UR we're running from Attack on Titan. So if you're one of those people who kind of like isn't sure about Attack on Titan and maybe you didn't get a lot of Attack on Titan cards, you can still play this deck because vertical maneuvering equipment is like a promo and it's an uncommon. Titanic Leap is a common. Trust and Armin is a common, and That Day is a common. So you'll probably have no problem picking up those cards if you opened, even a little bit of Attack on Titan, and other people pulled maybe these blank foundation cards. So I actually do think that this is like very easy to get if you've been getting if you got Jetburn, for example, and you built Ryukyu maybe in the past, and you don't have a lot of Attack on Titan cards. So it's an Attack on Titan deck, but it uses like the commons basically is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I think this is very buildable, and actually one of the things that I'm looking at because I currently don't have a lot of Attack on Titan right now, so just having an Attack on Titan deck that uses a bunch of the commons is really nice. So that's all I wanted to say. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.